Welcome back to this week's edition of the Jack Swarbrick Show. Our next guest is a man I spend a lot of time of, former Notre Dame basketball captain Torrian Jones, who played 4 years for Mike Bray's squad. 3 of those teams went to the NCAA tournament. His junior year, he helped the team get to the Sweet 16. He was a captain. His senior year started all 31 games and averaged a career-high 8.4 points per game. And, Jack, I know we're delighted to have Torrian coming on because he now serves another very important role for this athletic department.
He does, and that's where I want to start. We'll get to the basketball eventually in this, but you come back to Notre Dame in a different role in our academic services office. Tell our audience a little bit about what you do.
Thanks, Jack. I mean, I really love that role, and what was the biggest allure for me personally was that I know how much it helped me develop as a young man while here. Pat Holmes, who's now the director of the department, was my academic counselor, and he still worked with the men's basketball team. And, you know, I came in, I think, with a solid foundation academically, but he helped me to think about it more bigger picture and seeing how I can really maximize my time here rather than just taking, you know, classes that, you know, were easy, that fit with basketball, and, you know, a lot of those same values and you know, principles that he instilled helped me to be successful after college. And, you know, now I'm just looking to pay it forward and be kind of another support tool there for the student athletes here who all come from great families who are obviously there to help them out for whatever they need. But having a person who went here, who's been through it, who performed on a high-profile sport, to kind of be able to talk them through some of the tough times I think is really important to be successful here.
Give us a sense of the day in the life. I mean, who you work with, how you meet with them, how does the whole dynamic work?
Well, I work with the women's side of swimming and diving specifically, and then also the track and field and cross-country programs all together. And, you know, from our office's perspective, we work with students throughout their entire career, obviously, but our main focus is that freshman class, maybe even spilling into the sophomore year a little bit, in what we like to call the transition program, which is just helping them to acclimate to the changes from the expectations and what it takes to be successful as a high school student versus what it takes to be successful as a college student, especially at a school like Notre Dame, which is very challenging across the board, both athletically and academically. And we try to approach it from a lot of different ways and try to be somewhat flexible with how we approach it. But the main keys are early on having weekly meetings with our freshman student athletes, just to, you know, be in the know and just, you know, to build a rapport, to build a comfort level with them, to be able to come to us and trust us, to let them know when they're struggling. You know, we have just as high achieving athletes we have on their respective sports, they come in with that same determination to be successful academically. So it's not very easy to come in when you're used to just kind of hitting things out the park academically right off the bat, and now you're seeing the first sign of struggle. So building that trust is important, and it starts with those weekly meetings. In addition to that, we have a structured study program that we have implemented where they come in the evenings on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday evening for the respective sports that I work with. And we just try to provide them with resources at their disposal, whether it be tutors, writing centers, specialists, you know, study groups and things like that, and just kind of try to wear a lot of different hats and be a one-stop shop for them. Not so much to do everything for them or tell them how to do it, but just to expose them to the resources that they have there and make sure they're maximizing those opportunities.
I know it's also important for you to develop relationships with the coaching staff. So you also work a little bit with the football program, and Pat Holmes took you to the Fiesta Bowl as part of the academic advisory services team that was there. And part of the reason for that was not just to be there with players, but there is some downtime at every bowl game, and you were able to interact a little bit with the coaches who during the season are so busy and help try to develop those relationships.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jack. And it was a great experience across the board. I mean, I'm somewhat spoiled to be able to go out there and hang out in a very unofficial capacity. But as you said, during the year, we have the study hall for the football group over in the Gould complex. And while we cross paths with coaches here and there, we don't really get to have a chance to really talk to them. If anything, we're always coming to them to bother them about, you know, reinforcing certain things, you know, grabbing certain guys and making sure they're doing the right things academically with travel and things of that nature. But in our opportunity to go out there and see them at the Fiesta Bowl in the downtime, talking to some of the GAs and the head coaches and assistants and position coaches, it was really cool to see them, you know, with their hair down, so to speak. And, you know, though the bowl game didn't go as we would have liked, they were really good about and the post-game get-together that they had at the hotel, really interacting and you know, and enjoying the overall season and you know, acknowledging the hard work and what it took to be successful there across the board, not just on the field, but also the hard work that their students did in the classroom and being able to balance both of those heavy obligations.
Well, Jack, I know he proudly now wears his Fiesta Bowl Under Armour pullover on all of the basketball trips now,
Well,
even the team meals.
That's where I was going to go next because, we've got you doing so many things. The other thing you have to do is carry our radio broadcast on basketball, right? You got to make that work. Have you had experience doing that before you came here?
I never had, actually, Jack, and that was the interesting thing about it was that, I've been able to be around the game in multiple capacities, obviously as a player in college and somewhat in the professional, semi-professional level. But then when I was back home, I coached at a high school and then also as associate head coach at a D3 college and then skill work and training. So just from a knowledge perspective, it helped prepare me coming in for that part of it. But I couldn't be prepared for what it took to, what it takes to be good on air. And, Jack's been great with just bringing me along and really queuing me up and making it easy for me to be successful there in that regard. He talks to me a lot, gives me great constructive criticism, and just challenges me. He's very positive at all times, but he makes sure to let me know when there's ways I can grow in that regard. And with me not having experience there, that was critical to me being able to hit the ground running. And, my success early on in there, I have to attribute a lot to Jack's tutelage, if you will, there, and being patient with me as I grew in that regard.
Not everybody gets to work with an Emmy winner.
Exactly.
But he's been great from day one, and like most Notre Dame student athletes, he's a great communicator, but he also learns very, very quickly. And the toughest thing, I think, for a lot of analysts on radio, especially beginner, is radio is a play-by-play medium. You're painting a picture, and the play-by-play guy just has to talk more. So you have to get in and out of your points very, very quickly, and he's done that very, very well, as opposed to TV, which is more an analyst medium. And a couple weeks ago, I got the honor of doing one of the women's games on ESPN3 with Ruth Riley. And in that game, I'm trying to draw out Ruth. That's more a platform for the analyst to explain, where on radio it's more painting the picture, but with a good analyst, painting the picture and jumping in to explain the why without missing anything that happens, because most of the people, we like to think that some people turn down the sound on the TV and listen to us, but most of the people are not watching. They don't have the visual picture, and you have to paint that for them. And I really try to make sure that if somebody scratches their head, I try to let you know that. But he has been able to fit in so well, and he really identifies. It is great to have all the analysts do a great job. We're honored to still have LaFonso Ellis on occasion, but having guys who were captains and so intertwined with this coaching staff, and particularly Coach Bray, is really helpful. I'll just say, Torrian, you're not in that huddle, but you've been in huddles like this. What is Coach saying? And more often than not, we'll find out in postgame that what he said he thought Coach was saying is exactly what Coach said.
I thought LaFonso was too big time for us anymore. I see him on ESPN all the time.
He does 2 to 4. He does 2 to 4 a year.
Torrian, I got to ask you in this context. Who do you identify as the best analyst? When you're watching basketball at home, who's the guy you think that's who I ought to look to?
What's funny? After I graduated, I was really big into NBA. It was kind of where I was aspiring to be, to play myself, so I watched a lot of them there. And one of the greatest, I think the best guy that's doing it, at the NBA level is Hubie Brown. I mean, he really makes me feel like I'm getting like a teaching session, and that's what I like to bring as an analyst myself, is being able to explain and break down some of the things as opposed to just, nice crossover, a good left-hand layup, and understanding how he set the play up, the communication levels there. And Hubie Brown is second to none in that regard to me, and how he's able to articulate that and really help you to really understand to a higher and deeper level as a casual fan, even someone that didn't really play at a high level. But then also you got to love the guys like Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy. That's their cadence and how they work well off each other and, go back and forth and their banter.
Sometimes those guys know there's a game going on. Usually they're so busy just engaging each other.
Exactly.
They're oblivious to the game.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Are there any college guys that jump out at you? And obviously you're watching more NBA right now than college, and you're from an NBA town, so that makes a lot of sense.
Sure. Oh yeah. I mean, I love Dan Dockich. Is that? Did I say his last name correctly? He's a really good one. Very brutally honest at times, sometimes, and critical. And I just love his perspective on things. And Jay Billis is obviously, his reputation precedes him. I don't have to really say much about him, but I just really, from my perspective, the coaches seem to have the most interesting perspective because, again, from a player, you can kind of talk about it from how you experienced it there, but as a coach, a lot of those guys are former players and coaches. So, again, I feel like the more perspectives you can bring to the game, the better you are as an analyst. And Dan Dockich is great with that. Doris Burke is great with that. As I said, Jay Billis, and I mean it's a so many different guys I can kind of point to. LaFonso obviously just brings that calm, cool demeanor that you like to hear, and it makes you feel like you're not getting screamed at. Dick Vitale's great at it, but sometimes, man, you got to kind of go take a nap after watching the Dick Vitale game every once in a while. He's so animated.
Well, he's a great promoter, and he has your stick, and he admits it, and it's made him a very wealthy man, and he makes the event bigger. But all the folks that you mentioned got where they are because of how hard they prepare to do it. Dockage just started back in 2010. I remember that's the first time it was in the Old Spice and we won it. And he looked at me because I knew him from his IU days. I actually interviewed him when he was a player, and he goes, "I have no idea what I'm doing out there." And all I said was, "Yeah, but you have the knowledge and you talk well. Don't worry about it. You're doing fine."
Exactly.
And now he's a talk show host too. But the key is they all work hard, as you do, to get ready. And I'll tell you what, this coaching staff really helps all of us do our jobs. They give us access to the scouting reports. We get to go to practice. And you have to do that so that you can explain what's going on. Because a lot of times, something may happen. If you haven't been at practice, you don't know what was supposed to happen.
Exactly.
So you might analyze it in a different way. Knowing what the team was prepared to do helps you explain what's going on during a game.
100%. I'm sorry, Jack, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, as we let you go here, because we're getting short on time this segment, give us your analysis of the team at this point in the season, what you see and what has to happen for the road ahead.
I'm still really excited about the team. I mean, they've run into a couple roadblocks, but that's just a testament to how great the ACC is. Early on, kind of running into a buzzsaw down in Virginia and being pushed to the limit here at home against Pittsburgh, where we fell a little bit short. But I think it was expected. Coach Bray talked about it early in the year, where we have a lot of guys stepping into new roles. And though Demetrius Jackson played an integral role last year, Zach August, it's different doing that and then being a leader as well. And I think what we're missing most right now is the leadership that both Pat Connaughton and Jaron Grant brought. So as guys continue to get comfortable in those roles, with Steve Astoria most recently being named the additional captain on the team, I think we'll see growth in that regard, because it's an approach, I think, that those guys brought in different dynamics. Pat was a fiery, competitor that just brought a natural toughness and set the bar very high, where as a complementary player, you had no choice but to go hard and really battle right from the beginning with a 6'5" perimeter player battling with big men. And then Jaron's calmness under fire. I mean, he was a guy that was never high or low, and I think at the end of games when the heightened, intensity would get to most people, he was just so unflappable, and I think it was contagious amongst the other guys. So that's what allows you to be able to beat a Pittsburgh late in the game like that, or to go into a hostile Virginia crowd environment and be able to win out there. And, missing those guys is critical, but I think guys like Demetrius and Zach and Steve will be able to step up as we move forward and continue to grow and get more comfortable and lead in that way as well.
Well, I'm sure they will, and got a history of great leadership, including the leadership you provided when you were a captain here. We're thrilled to have you back on campus continuing to help us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jack.
We'll be back in a minute.